The first thing is the approval of the minute of September 29, 2022.
So moved. Second.
Moving second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passed. Okay. Our second, it's PLN 21-009 FH Development Group included, rezoning and WCDD Development Milford. Initial report with Debbie.
Oh, I have to plug it in. Sorry.
What happened?
There we go. So, the applicant is FH Development Group, Inc. The location of the property is right here, outlined in red, subject property, and it's located on Highway 2 in Milford. It's the last property in the north end of the South Corridor and Commercial Growth Management Area, so it's the last property in our serviceable boundary. Its size is 111 hectares, and the proposal from the applicant is to amend the municipal planning strategy and land use bylaw and to enter into a development agreement for a mixed-use master plan development, including a mixture of low, medium, and high-density residential development, open space, and possible commercial uses. And so just surrounding uses, here we have the Armco lands, which is under a master plan community and with an existing development agreement on it. Across the street, we have some rural use lands which are not in the serviceable boundary. And there's Robert Scott Drive, which is zoned R1. And then to the north of the subject property here are rural use zoned lands, and those are not in the serviceable boundary either. So here is the concept plan for the proposed development. The total residential units is 1,439. Single unit dwellings shown here in the yellowish orange colors are 371. Two unit dwelling in the darker blue is 166. Townhouse units here in the lighter blue are 112. Multiple unit building dwelling units, which are going to be located where the pink are proposed to be, are 794. Then we have some open space and trails. So there's a small open space here, here, and here. And then they show the extension of the Barney Brook Trail from the Armco development and going all the way up to the edge of the property. There's some conservation lands in the light green area and stormwater management areas, which are these kind of sky blue rectangles along the way. So this is just to show you how the street connects with the existing development agreement for the Armco application. So as you can see, the development is actually, the proposed development is divided into 3 different phases. The first phase is down here and has access off of Highway 2. The second phase is goes up to Barney's Brook, and it has connections in with the Armco development and with the existing phase 1. And then the third phase is from Barney's Brook up to Highway 102. And again, that phase is totally reliant on the development of the adjoining property. Staff will be requesting comments from internal departments and external agencies. The planning application is 2 parts, the mapping amendments and the development agreement. Both parts of the application will be processed at the same time. However, the development agreement will be contingent on the MPS and LUB mapping amendments being approved. Council's policy goal of the Walkable Comprehensive Development District is to establish an avenue for the consideration of relatively large-scale mixed-use and phased development proposals using the Comprehensive Development District tool. These developments should create a development conducive to active transportation through human-scale developments designed to create visual interest at street level. Developments are also permitted and encouraged to use creativity through alternative roadway standards and new urbanism development principles. And there will be active transportation route that will connect into the Armco development through here, and as I mentioned, the trail along Barney's Brook. So citizen engagement, an advertisement outlining the application and indicating that it had been received and was under review by staff was placed in the Chronicle Herald. A public information meeting is required for all amendments to the municipal planning strategy unless they are housekeeping in nature. Due to the size and scale of the development, staff recommends that both an open house and a public information meeting be organized to enable the public to gain information on the proposal. A letter indicating the time and date of the open house and PIM will be mailed to all property owners within 300 meters of the subject property, indicating the time and date of the meeting unless otherwise directed. Additional advertising will be placed on the East Hants website and on our social media feeds. And staff are tentatively looking at scheduling the PIM for the December PIM date in your Council Chambers online calendar. Conclusion, planning staff will continue to review the application by FH Development Group, Inc. for a master plan community in Milford. This initial report simply outlines the development proposal. Further reports will consider traffic, parks and open space, servicing, stormwater management, and other planning matters. Changes to the concept plan may be required as the application proceeds, and staff are recommending that an open house and a public information meeting be held as the next step in the planning application process. And the recommendation is that Planning Advisory Committee recommends that Council authorize staff to schedule an open house and a public information meeting. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Debbie. I have Deputy Warden Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you to staff. Are municipal services up in that area right now, or do they stop at Robert Scott?
Through you, Mr. Chair, right now they're not that far along, and that would be one of the items that we look at. I believe they go along Highway 2 up to Robert Scott.
So we'll have to extend it, or does the developer do the extension?
That will be negotiated as part of the development agreement process.
Okay. And the second one is, you talk about active transportation?
Yes.
That's going to be part of the proposal, I hope?
Yes, it is. Right now, just on initial review, I think from the ARMCO, the active transportation route comes up this road here, so we'd ask that it goes back down at least to the bottom here, and then we'd look at where else we may want it.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. So this proposal, it's in the current serviceable boundary,
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, it's the last property.
the entire property.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So if it were to be developed as of right, it would still be serviced development.
Yes.
Thank you. And my second question is, you mentioned phases 1, 2, and 3. Do we have some kind of a ballpark idea of when this development would be built out?
Through you, Mr. Chair, no, not at the moment. It depends on this process, of course, but other than that, it depends on servicing and the availability of services and how the adjoining property is developed, because they would have to work together to get those services extended down the road.
So we don't know if we're talking 2 years, 5 years?
At this point in time, no.
Part of my question is because we're currently involved in a polling district review, and this proposal proposes to add 1,400 and some dwelling units, so probably double that many voting residents, which is almost 2 complete districts population-wise. And which means that if we wouldn't be adding 2 councillors, we'd never be allowed. But it would mean the average population for district would skyrocket again and make it extremely difficult to figure the whole picture out. So I guess my comment, and I know none of us have any ability perhaps to influence it, but I just feel that what has been the reluctance to allow councils to increase their number. In some cases, I think it's really justified when you're facing unprecedented growth such as East Hants does, in order that the less populated areas are not penalized simply because we have such an active growth corridor near the highway. So just some comments, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to staff. I think that the question that gets asked me most often in District 1, and it would apply in the districts further up the corridor as well, and I never know quite how to answer it, is residents asking me, how is our infrastructure going to handle, these big developments? Where is all the water coming? Which seem like really base questions, but they're valid questions, from a resident's point of view, and actually from my own, because I don't really know how to respond. So like, say this is, what did you say it was?
1,439.
So when you add those numbers, the wastewater, the water consumed to the already Armco and the Shaw development and whatnot, how does that all affect our infrastructure? And do you consider that when, proposing these decisions?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I can answer the first part of it. We do consider it as part of the application process. As part of our review, we consult our reviewing agencies, and part of that is our own internal Department of Infrastructure and Operations, who review it from a servicing standpoint. And I believe that the director could give us a little bit more information on the servicing study and when that might be anticipated to be completed.
Perfect, through you, Mr. Chair. So I won't talk necessarily to the service study per se. I'll talk to capacity and new developments. So a new development is proposed. We don't look at any hypothetical development like this. It happens in phases, and you go for an official phasing, and you only assess the capacity available based on the phase that they come up to. So this is a general concept. In concept, you approve it conceptually. So if 20 years from now, the top section happens or wants to happen and there's not enough capacity, then it's not approved at that time. So it's by each segment, and the municipality doesn't commit to capacity 20 years out to any developer. You go phase by phase, and you can't look at it as a standalone development. You have to look at the whole network as a whole. So there's multiple, there's just not a simple answer to it. So the deal is, we look at capacity at time of application and what's available in the system. That said, every development application has infrastructure charges involved in it. Infrastructure charges are currently approximately $3,000 per dwelling unit for water, $3,000 per dwelling unit for wastewater. Those are for future capacity. So those charges that are accumulated over time are a pot of money that the municipality then in turns reinvests in capacity building. So as such, as the municipality is putting away those funds, the municipality in essence is committing to future capacity upgrades and projects. That's what you're doing. So we're preparing for those future expansions and future projects, and staff will bring them forward as they're triggered and the needs presents themselves. So it's a very dynamic thing, but there is a plan in principle in place and a funding model in place. It's not exact, not perfect, but from a due diligence side, it's what the municipality has chosen as an approach.
Okay, well, that's something that I didn't know before. So that's valuable information to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To move it on to a public information meeting, I'll move the recommended motion that's presented.
Second.
Question?
Yeah, just a quick question on the motion. There says an open house and a public information meeting. Are they together?
Through you,
Or
Mr. Chair.
separate?
They would be together. We'd do, Most likely what we did for both the Shaw and the Armco is run the open house earlier in the day and then go into the public information meeting at 7 o'clock.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question probably for Jesse. Jesse, I wanna add to Councilor Garden Cole. With this first phase of this development, the majority of the unit are gonna be built. Like they're gonna start with a multi-unit, like that's 800 units down there. So with all the site plan that been approved in Enfield, Elmsdale, and do you feel you have enough capacity for the initial one?
Through Madam Chair. So it depends. So what council has done for all major developments, you've agreed to in principle. Each one will be in phasings. You have not committed capacity in whole to any of those major developments. You have not done that. You've done it to segments to date. So anytime we look at capacity, we look at who's at the table today, and you sign up and allocate for capacity. You have 2 years to build. If you don't use it, that capacity goes back in the pot. Someone else can grab it. So everything that's been in front of you isn't totally allocated in the allocation. So it just depends. So we respond to what capacity is has anyone stepped up, signed on to build? And if they have, they get allocated capacity. So, we track water capacity on a monthly basis. We discuss it and review it. We're doing an expansion. And what we'll do is we'll look at that table, say, is there enough units available? If yes, the answer is yes, there is capacity. If no, the answer is no at that point. But ideally, we're ahead of the game and the curve on that. So what the council can count on is, yes, you're expanding the water treatment plant. As talked about, if you want to get into a real big conversation about it, up to you. At some point, the municipality will have to look bigger, but at what point? I can't tell you today. So will you need to build a bigger water plant? Well, that was actually explored back in 2004. So the municipality had that debate. Municipality had a choice. Do we expand the Enfield water treatment plant in a small segment, or do we look bigger? And it was an open report. So it was explored and talked about. Do you build a water plant on Grand Lake? That's a public report, 2004. Council said, nope, I don't want to do that. I want to do this in segments. We're going to plan for an expansion. We did a partial expansion in 2009 with the ability to expand more in the future. We're actually executing that expansion now with the expansion of the water treatment plant. We built it in 3 plant upgrade segments. We built 2 of the 3. We're doing the 3rd leg now. After that, the municipalities, the next thing you do as soon as you start building this one, you start looking at the next one. And so we're going to be doing the same thing on the wastewater side of things. We're doing capacity work to try and figure out things on the wastewater side. And the same thing, you will always have to build the next plant. So there will always be more. If you continue to grow and continue to want to grow, there will always be the next segment and the next major project. They will never stop. So I can't tell you today when, but is there an end in sight? No, if you want to grow, there will always be a bigger project in play in the future. So it's really challenging from a staff perspective for the questions on is there capacity or not. We only look at it case by case based on the allocation of the day. And so we'll only tell you there's capacity based on what's available within our rules for that one segment that's in front of us. Not the holistic what could happen and what ifs. It's just too much. And that's not how we're structured.
Yeah, okay, sounds good. And when you do site plan approval, you're not committed or you're committed? Like when somebody apply for site plan approval, that's what I want to know.
Well, to that question, yes, once we give site plan approval, that is committed capacity.
Yeah, that was my question.
Yeah.
With all those site plan approval, They already committed, so we still have,
And those are being tracked. The question or the comment I was going to make, Mr. Chair, was in all our conversations with these developers for these large projects, we always make it perfectly clear to them, and the DAs reflect this, that the capacity isn't being allocated. What council is doing is reviewing the land use concept, whether it's the right fit and organization and the open space and all that stuff. We do, of course, refer those applications to I&O so that they can provide some initial comments. But all these developers know they do not have the full build-out, permission to do the full build-out. That, as Jesse said, is incremental. It comes with the applications for subdivision approval, and those always come in phases. And even there, you might remember we did some amendments to the subdivision bylaw a few years ago so that, let's say developer A comes in with a plan for 500 lots, we can actually say, no, we're not going to, even though we actually have capacity for 500, we're not actually going to commit to that. It's not first come, first serve. We want to reserve some capacity for other things. So we have the ability, even in a first come, first serve world, to actually reserve some capacity for other things.
Okay.
So, yeah.
thank you. Thank you, Gordon. Okay, I see no one else. Question being called. F10. Okay, and the motion passed unanimously. Okay. Our next item is PLN 22-005, Martian/Powell, redesignation and rezoning Mount Uniac, first reading.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is the second report coming forward to PAC for redesignation and rezoning in Mount Uniac. So the subject property is located on the East Uniac Road. The redesignation and rezoning is for a portion of the property. It's outlined in red, and this portion totals approximately 22.2 hectares in size. The zoning on the property is rural use with the watercourse greenbelt zoning on the rear of the property, and it is designated as rural use as well. So the applicant has requested to change the designation on the property from rural use to the established residential neighborhood designation, and the zone from the rural use to the established residential neighborhood R1 zone. And this is in order to pursue development of a low-density residential subdivision. The concept plan contains 26 potential new lots, 35 in total, and the detailed layout, including open space, will be submitted with the subdivision application. So this is the concept plan again. So there's 26 lots that would be included in this redesignation and rezoning, and 31 if you include those along that use the existing frontage. So the Mount Uniac Growth Management Area is unique in that it enables development based on site sewage, on-site sewage and water service. And the rural use zone doesn't allow for any new roads, therefore the property has to be redesignated and rezoned in order to enable the development. So staff are referring to our policies associated with the Mount Uniac Growth Management Area, as well as our general policies related to amending the planning strategy and the land use bylaw. The applicant did provide a hydrogeological study that allows council to consider the adequacy of the site to provide drinking water. Those study conclusions are currently being reviewed by staff. And council's decision on this application is not appealable to the Utility and Review Board, as it involves amendments to our policy. So there was an advertisement placed in the Chronicle Herald on the 27th of July. just outlining that the proposal was under review. And a public information meeting was required in order to hear input from the community. So there was a letter mailed to all property owners within 300 meters of the site indicating the date and time of the meeting, and an ad was also placed in the Chronicle Herald on the 29th of August. So we held the PIM on September 6th at the Mount Uniacke Legion. There was 26 people in attendance, including 3 counselors. Some of the comments that were noted regarding the state of the East Uniacke Road and who is responsible for maintaining and repairing the road, as well as concerns regarding safety, specifically regarding the speed of traffic on the East Uniacke Road. There were some questions regarding the watercourse greenbelt zone and whether that would be retained, which it would be. Residents are hoping to see a traffic impact study conducted for the East Uniacke Road. And there was a representative from the Sackville Rivers Association who provided some items that they would like addressed. A full list of comments that were made at the meeting is attached to the staff report. And following first reading, there will be a questionnaire mailed out again to all property owners within 300 meters of the site. So staff are continuing to review the proposal to change the subject property to the established residential neighborhood designation and zone. And there will be a final recommendation to PAC in our final staff report. And the recommendation today is that the Planning Advisory Committee recommends that Council give first reading and authorize staff to schedule a public hearing. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. I see no one. Okay, Councilor Perry.
I will move the recommended motion.
Okay, moved and second. I'll be looking for a question. Question being called. Go for the vote. And it passed unanimously. Our next item is PLN 22-006, Raymar Developments Limited, Redesignation and Rezoning Mount Uniacke, first reading. Leanne.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is again the second report coming to PAC for another redesignation and rezoning in Mount Uniacke. So this property is on the East Uniacke Road. It's outlined the subject property in red. The zoning on the property is rural use, and it is designated as rural use as well. And this property totals approximately 42.2 hectares in size. So the applicant has requested to change the designation from rural use to the country residential designation and the zone from rural use to country residential. And this is in order to enable the development of a low-density residential subdivision. The concept plan shows 54 potential new lots, 61 in total. The detailed layout, again, will be submitted with a subdivision application. So this is a concept plan only, so there may be amendments to the site layout after it's been reviewed. So this is the concept plan. It has been recently amended by the applicant after the hydrogeological study was conducted. So there's 54 new lots, 61 if you include those along the East Uniacke Road. These already do have permits and are under construction, but so the rural use zone doesn't allow for any new roads. Therefore, the property has to be redesignated and rezoned in order to enable the development. So staff are referring to our policies associated with the country residential designation and our policies related to amending the policy and the land use bylaw. There was a hydrogeological study provided for this site as well in order for council to consider the adequacy of the site for drinking water. Those studies, again, are currently being reviewed. And this application is not appealable to the Utility and Review Board. So there was an advertisement placed in the Chronicle Herald on June 22nd, indicating that it was under review by staff, and a PIM was also required to hear input from the community. So there was a letter mailed to all property owners within 800 meters of the subject property, indicating the date and time of the meeting. as well as an ad placed in the Chronicle Herald on the 29th of August. So the PIM was held on the 6th of September at the Mount Uniacke Legion. Some of the comments were regarding the hydrogeological study, and people were looking to have a copy of that posted. There was some discussion around minimum lot sizes that were proposed, discussion on the meaning of low-density housing. Again, many comments made regarding the pressure on the East Uniacke Road and safety and speed of the East Uniacke Road. And residents are looking to see a traffic impact study. So following the first reading, there will be a questionnaire mailed to all property owners within 800 meters of the site. So at June meeting of council, the notification area was extended from the 300 meters to the 800 meters. So we will be keeping this notification area unless otherwise directed by council, as we deem that it's still relevant for the questionnaires as well. So staff are continuing to review the proposal to change the subject property to the country residential designation and zone. And there will be a recommendation to PAC in staff's final report. So the recommendation today is that Planning Advisory Committee recommend that council give first reading and authorize staff to schedule a public hearing. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Deputy Warden Mitchell.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a question on one of the comments about the traffic impact study. Does the municipality do that, or is that Public Works?
Through you, Mr. Chair, it's the applicant that would provide the traffic impact study.
Okay, thanks.
Councilor Perry.
I'll move the recommended motion.
Debbie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As part of the plan update, the CAO requested staff prepare a report to look at the cost comparison of maintenance of public gravel roads compared to public paved roads, and request that PAC consider if gravel roads should still be available as an option for developers. Under the current subdivision bylaw regulations, public gravel roads are not permitted to be constructed in growth management areas and in the growth reserve areas. East Hants owns approximately 8 kilometers of public gravel roads, and there is an extra cost to the municipality for the maintenance of public gravel roads compared to public paved roads. So the former manager of engineering had prepared this chart here for a project he was working on, and he's reviewed the costs associated with the maintenance of both road types, paved and gravel, for the years 2017 to 2019. Costs identified will have increased with the rise in inflation, and the costs provided do not capture the price to resurface a paved road or to bed renewal of a gravel road. So as you can see here, cost per kilometer, average for gravel road is $5,127, and the average paved is $632. So there's a significant difference between the costs there. And to date, not many gravel roads have been constructed within East Hants. However, there could potentially be a significant future cost to the municipality if a new development was constructed with only public gravel roads. Gravel roads do offer developers a less expensive option for the construction of a public road. In addition, these types of roads also offer a more rural experience compared to paved roads. So there are 2 alternatives for council to consider. Remove the ability of developers to construct public gravel roads, or maintain the option which permits developers to construct public gravel roads. If council council continues to provide developers with the option of constructing public gravel roads, there will be an associated maintenance cost on the general tax rate related to the upkeep of these roads. However, removing the option will impact the developer's cost of construction and will reduce the types of roads options available for their developments. And the recommendation is that Planning Advisory Committee recommends the council choose one of the alternative motions, and I've listed them both there for you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Debbie.
Just, excuse me, a bit of concern. Where would these 8 kilometers of gravel roads approximately that we own be located?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I don't have my chart with me that showed where they are. I think they're in a variety of different locations. It would include those gaps that are a part of the GAP project, so those will be eliminated eventually. But there are some roads, I believe, in 9 Mile River. Yep, and the director probably can give you a better idea.
Well, I guess my point is that they're not in the current unplanned area, the majority of them.
Through you, some would be, oh, sorry. So from a gravel road, so examples of gravel roads the municipality owns, there are some in Enfield/Horn Settlement. There are some in Mount Uniacke, such as Jorfy Drive. There'd be some like the Bell Court Extension in 9 Mile River. So there is a scatter and a representation across the municipality of what would be remaining.
But not in the current unzoned area. I can only think of one very small section.
That exactly, I would say that's a fair statement.
Yeah. So my concern is that it's certainly financially feasible for developers to pave roads when their developments are in high-density areas. The lower the density, the more challenging it becomes to make a feasible project, the more expenses that you pile on. However, having said that, I understand that it costs a lot more to maintain a gravel road than it does a paved road. But these numbers that we're looking at don't take into context the cost of repaving those paved roads when they need to be repaved. And I'm going to submit that that's a substantial cost that's currently borne on the general tax rate, and I'm not arguing that it shouldn't be. So in the years that you're maintaining these roads after the developer paves it, that's great. But then you're going to have hundreds of thousands of dollars to repave it a few years down the road. So to me, I don't think this is a fair comparison of the costs of maintenance. I do believe that you have to somehow factor in the cost of repaving to that. I don't agree with just a blanket with a blanket statement of saying absolutely no gravel roads, because that would kind of do to the more rural areas, such as where I live, it's not feasible to put in a subdivision and pave the roads because the lots would have to be so large and they would become so prohibitively expensive. So I don't know what the answer is, but to me, making a ruling that there would be 0 gravel roads would negatively impact one part of the municipality more than the other. And I understand that there are more costs to maintaining gravel roads, but I do think that that is somewhat balanced out when you factor in the repaving costs of the paved roads that we own. So I'm not sold on this at this time. I know in the current area that's not currently zoned, there's nobody beating down the roads to put in, or beating down the doors to put in new roads now. And if you make a rule that no new roads can be gravel roads, we're not ever going to have any new roads out there. The small subdivisions that exist now, like McGraw Lake and those areas, they won't go in. And then we'll be right back into a situation where we're developing on private roads or we're developing off laneways or driveways. I think that gravel roads, if they're permitted, should have to be built to a standard that could be paved. But to just say a blanket, no gravel roads, I'm not there yet, and I'll leave it at that for now. Thank you. For now.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Kind of building on what the warden said, yeah, there is a huge cost to repave a road, and there's a huge cost to rebed a road as well. And I think those two numbers that are missing from this report would definitely give council a better idea of what the cost is for the two of those. Also looking at, I'll let you answer that in a second, Debbie. Also moving on with that, currently right now, if we have a municipal gravel road and the residents want to pave that road in a paving petition, anytime somebody does not return their vote, it is automatically counted as a no. I believe what it should be is there is a petition in to pave the road. You should vote yes or no. If you don't want it, it should be more incumbent on the people who don't want it to return it than those who do, right? Counting a non-return as an automatic no has definitely had an adverse effect in getting some of our municipal gravel roads paved. Also, currently the split between the residents and the municipality is 90% cost on the residents, 10% on the municipality. If this chart shows anything for maintenance, we would save a lot more in maintenance if we provided a little more greater help to those people to get their roads paved at a different percentage. And I believe that should be a separate conversation beyond here, but we should look at what number makes sense to incentivize certain gravel roads to become paved. If you look at what we did for the gap roads, we put a lump sum of $150,000 down, which is a lot more than the 10%, right, in order to get that project done. And we should look at opportunities in the future to enable people to get these roads paved that isn't at an exuberant cost. Also, if you look at the rural area, a lot of the roads that some of these subdivisions are going off of are provincial roads. And a lot of these provincial roads are gravel roads. I would question the gravel on some of them, but that's neither here nor there. But it would be very difficult to have a developer have to pave a road that's 4 or 5 kilometers down a provincial gravel road that is not going to be paved. So I would fully like to see all roads be paved, but it's not always feasible. And I believe having a single carte blanche approach of either all are paved or not, we have to figure out, it's almost a case by case or a hybrid model, because if you look at the last 2 applications that we just approved for first reading or second reading, one of them, they're both a kilometer apart. One of them falls in the growth management area at Mount Uniacke. It's required to have paved roads. A kilometer down the road, they're allowed to put a gravel road in, right? There's other developments further on that have paved. So in that instance there, the policy of requiring a paved road to make all the subdivisions off that East Uniacke road that's already paved makes sense. However, if somebody who's going to build a subdivision, using Mount Uniacke as an example, off a Beamish Road, which is a provincial gravel road that goes about 3-4 kilometers back, it makes no sense to put a paved road in off of a gravel road. So I don't know how we can tweak this to make it more enticing for both the developers and the residents who live on these roads to get some of these paving petitions through and have a better experience for some of them. And there are some people who just like dirt roads. That's out there as well. But I know Debbie has an answer to my first question about the rebedding cost and the repaving cost. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I don't have a direct answer, but I was going to say that staff did discuss it, and we just didn't have enough information to feel comfortable providing that to our Planning Advisory Committee. The Director of Finance might be able to elaborate, but we're just starting to collect that information through our asset management process, and it is a long, the process for getting it paved is 20 years, is it approximately we're looking at right now? Yeah, 20 years for the paved roads. And for the rebedding, I don't think we're there at even knowing what the time period is for that one yet.
For now, I have something else in my mind, but I see there's other lights on, so I'll. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a few comments on this. When it comes to costs, yes, after 20 years, and that's about right when you would have to start repaving, probably after 10 to 15, you'd be doing some patching. The repaving would be expensive, but properly maintaining a gravel road, which requires 3 gradings a year, dust control, stabilization, if you're going to do it properly, costs a lot of money too. If you add that up over the 20 years, having done this for quite a few years, you're going to come into a considerable amount of money. With a 20-year outlook, the municipality should be able to plan for that repaving. The warden brought up McGraw Lake, for instance. As former supervisor for there and having to deal with the horrible conditions that road gets into in the springtime and other time, talking to many residents there years ago when I was the supervisor there, they wondered why the road wasn't paved then. One of the problems with some of the gravel roads, or a lot of the gravel roads that I've seen around, they weren't built to a very good standard and don't stand up. If they'd have been built properly up to the point of paving, then you may as well pave them. And that is an expense of the developer, but that would be shared out over all the lots. As far as people saying, you're on a gravel road and then you have a paved road off it, well, if I lived on a 2,000 meter subdivision road, a couple hundred meters down it, I would like the traffic going by me not to be able to create any dust, even though out on the government road, it is gravel. And I see in here that part of the idea is the rural experience. Well, I live on what's referred to as a gravel road. I don't agree that there's any gravel on it at all, hardly. But it's very dusty, it gets very rough. I live 70 meters from the pavement. I wish someone would put 100 meters worth of pavement up past my house. I don't enjoy the rural experience of having dust and potholes one bit. Anyway, thank you.
I guess no one disagrees that the optimal thing would be for all of our roads to be paved. But we have to look at more than just wanting to have all roads paved, because we're seeing unprecedented growth in this side of the municipality currently. And to say unprecedented growth here means a lot of growth, because it's been growing here for a long time. Those of us in the rural area would like to see some corresponding growth, just to keep us relevant within our own municipality. Because as I stated in one of the last developments that came forward, the number of residents that will be moved in there are the equivalent in what would be projected by 2024 to be the equivalent number of voters of 2 more districts. So by not adding, assuming we're not going to add 2 more councilors, that average voters per district goes up to the point that, you're not very many years down the road when the whole, for example, Hants North area be lucky to have 1 councilor. And you can say that's voter parity. And that would be right. But there's more to fairness than just number of voters. There's community of interest and community need, and there are differences in the communities. So those of us that live in the rural area, we'd like to see some growth. And we don't like potholes and dust all that much either. But we'd like to have the ability to have, we're probably not, given the requirements for wells and septic fields and everything, we're not going to get 1,400 unit developments out there. We're not going to get huge developments like that, but we could very well get some smaller developments off of existing roads, and that might require new roads. And I guess all I'm saying is, let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. Let's not bring in a provision that absolutely forbids that to happen. There are places when it would make more sense than others, as Councillor Perry said, absolutely. So I don't think, for me, it's not an all or nothing thing. I can certainly see where it would be desirable in some places, and I agree with Councillor Perry as well. Maybe part of the answer is to incentivize paving once there are gravel roads. You know, I don't know exactly what it looks like, but once we have, and we don't even have the complete figures, as staff have said now, we don't really know what those numbers are. And even when we have them, to try and project out what it's going to cost to pave a kilometer of road 20 years is going to be pretty difficult to do. But, and yes, we can be planning for that, but we're also planning for the ongoing maintenance of other roads too. So I guess I'm saying I won't support a rule that says that the ability to construct municipal gravel roads as public roads is removed. I would be open to having further discussion under in what circumstances they might or might not be allowed. But if all we're giving is alternative number 1 and alternative number 2, I'll go with number 2 for the time being. But that doesn't mean I don't understand the issue and that I'm not open to having some further discussions on how to mitigate things somewhat. And to, like I said, to make a blanket decision at this time without even having all the numbers for me would be problematic. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to staff, under the development agreement plan, if somebody was to bring a development forward and it was, you know, in an area that allowed gravel roads versus paved, you know, it was just outside and was conjecting to a paved road, under the development agreement, could the municipality request that the road be paved, especially if they are changing zoning and designation?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I believe so. We could negotiate for it.
Yeah. Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, through a DA, but not through a rezoning or a redesignation.
Yeah.
Okay, so through a DA, because I'm just looking at applications coming in. Some of them require rezoning, and then part of that rezoning doesn't always lead to a DA, because then once you rezone it, it's as of right,
Yes.
right? So part of me is kind of looking at this saying, well, maybe we need to like make sure that a DA is in some of, like, how do you link a DA to some of these to ensure that you are able to do that? And I agree with the warden, and I think that's something, and maybe once this is done, maybe I'll make a motion to come back with is looking at how we can incentivize, because it's at the benefit of the municipality, you know, to get some of these newer developments that are coming in paved. And if we can incentivize it a little bit more for the developers, then we work together as partners, because, you know, it's only beneficial for them as well as it is for us. So, but trying to figure out how we can link those two, I think, is something that needs to be explored, because if we can control it through a DA, the areas that do make sense to pave, we can incentivize them to be paved. The areas that don't make sense to be paved in a small rural development, we don't have to. So I don't quite know how you make that happen as a planning side, or what type of policy is needed, but I'm tending to agree with the warden right now. Until we have something else that we can massage into it, the alternative motion to keeping the status quo until we can get to somewhere else, I think might be the way to go. Thank you,
So-
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair? Mr. Chair, so based on the concerns that we've heard today, I mean, what you're suggesting could be done. We could restrict the area where paved public roads are required to a geographic area. So if you don't want rural north to have that restriction, then we can do that. And to the other point of connecting to existing gravel roads, you could also write that into your regulation so that if you have a development that connects to an existing gravel public road, you wouldn't have to, I mean, those are all regulations you could add to your subdivision bylaw. So if that's the direction the committee wants us to explore, we can certainly do that. And I think also, Mr. Chair, it is a separate conversation what we do with paving petitions and the level of financial support. So that, I think if you want us to explore that, that would also be a different report.
Well, thank you. For this district I represent, we would welcome new growth. And I think if we strictly go with all asphalt and pavement, I think that would put a roadblock up for many people, for many developers. We need encouragement to bring them in there, into that rural area. And that's an incentive. Okay, if we can build a gravel road, it's cheaper to build that, and then we go from there. But to come up and say, you know, yeah, we need you have to be paved, it just puts another roadblock up because of the big lot size, of the wellness septic in our area. You know, down the road, in a perfect world, yeah, everything would be paved, but it's not a perfect world. You know, this municipality is made up of 3 regions, and those regions are somewhat different in many ways. And, you know, we're over in this side, and, you may want paved roads all the time. We just want growth over in the Hants North area, and that would prohibit, I feel, would prohibit that ever taking place and put it way out there. So that's my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I'm going to try a motion. I'm going to move that we authorize staff to maintain the current regulations that permit the construction of municipal gravel public roads at this time, but to bring back a report addressing some of the discussion that's been here today around what regions it might be appropriate or not, and what circumstances under which it might be appropriate to prohibit gravel roads. Does that make sense?
Okay with that, Debbie?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, that's fine.
Before the motion, I have.
Need a seconder.
Oh, you need a second, we need a seconder. Okay. Seconded by Councilor Randall. Councilor Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd just like to point out one thing that people, councilors are worried about getting development out into the rural areas. That development, those people are going to come from outside of East Hants probably, or at least that rural area. It'll be much more attractive to sell those lots and develop those subdivisions if they're on paved roads. As far as the developer, if you're, maybe someone like myself that had a few acres that wanted to develop it, maybe that make me rethink it. Any development is probably going to come through larger developers. That won't deter them. If they think it's practical to put a subdivision there, they'll put it there, they'll pave it, they'll charge accordingly for the lot. Thank you.
Okay, so if we ban private gravel roads, that's gonna open up the private roads, which is up to standard. It's a good idea, but we're taking the weight of the municipality and putting it on residents, which earlier when I came like 4 years ago and stuff, that was, we want to get rid of private road. So now with that report, we're encouraging private road because if you put a developer between private road or a paved public road, he's gonna go 100 times for private road. And staff came to us a few years ago to get away with the private roads. So that's a confusion for me for now. Plus, Councilor McPhee, in a rural area, we don't have presence for police. Anytime you pave a road, like we have Morning Breeze, as soon they paved it, it became a racetrack. People like go there just to try their car, how fast they can go. And we don't want that in a subdivision. So unless we resolve the police issue and we have some presence for the police in the area, I 100% do not agree with everything being paved because that's going to be a dangerous path. And I have another issue, but I'll leave it with that for now.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A question through you to staff. If the new development is completed, would the municipality be obligated to take over those public gravel roads? Or we have the option?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, if they're building it to our municipal standards and they meet our municipal standards and they're built as public gravel roads, and we take them over.
We'd be obligated to take them over? Okay, thank you.
We agree on everything being paved, and somebody build a private road up to our standard. What's gonna happen if they wanna turn it over? They have to pave it, then turn it over, or we're gonna be paving it?
Through you, Mr. Chair, if somebody were to want a private road and to change it into a public road, they would have to bring it up to our municipal standards, whether it was paved or unpaved. So if our standards at the time say it was paved, then it would have to be brought up to paving standards. Or if it was gravel and they wanted to bring it up to public roads and we kept that, it would still have to be brought up to public road standards for gravel roads.
Okay. So one more clarification about the motion. So, John, is there, or Debbie, is there any way in the report, can you bring something with number if a road have over 50, if a subdivision or like over 50 homes or something, the main road have to be paved, not the, like you could have a paved, like same as Cottage Country. Like we have, so the main road is paved and the others are public, private roads and stuff. I think that would take a lot constraint from the developer and from the residents. And yeah. Could we do that?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. Yep, so you're talking just about a collector road within the development itself and then have the little local rows be unpaved.
Yeah.
Yep, we could look at that.
Okay, and thank you. Warden.
Yeah, and I have no problem with that, but again, I think we need to have a regional lens on those requirements. Just a comment, thank you.
Okay, I see no one else. I'll be looking for questions. Question being called. We go over the vote. And the motion passed 9-1 with, let me see the result. Okay, Councilor McPhee voted nay. That was a tough one. Okay. Our next item is open space disposal bid. Oh, Councilor Perry, sorry.
No problem. Through you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to make a motion. I'd like to move that staff bring back a report on paving petitions and possible incentive increases or incentive options for both developers and residents to pave their current public gravel roads. Is that enough? Give you enough there, Jim? Okay.
Any seconder? Okay, I have Councilor Hack.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just clarification, the present roads you now are roads that are going to be built in the future?
This would be our current policy. I want to look at our current policy that we have
Oh, okay.
for paving. Let's see if we can update that.
Okay, I understand it now. Thank you.
Thank you. I have no one else, so I'll be looking for a question. Question being called. And it passed unanimously. Our next item is, no, anybody wants? Okay. Open space disposal, bid 453-54677, Meadowview Way, Belknap. Initial report to Debbie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So a preliminary plan of subdivision application has been submitted to the Planning and Development Department for land in Belknap for staff to review. As part of the initial review, it was determined that there was an opportunity to improve both pedestrian and vehicular connectivity in the Garden Meadows subdivision. As a result, staff is requesting that consideration be given by council that PID 453-54677 be identified as surplus open space lands and authorize staff to initiate the process of disposing of open space lands in accordance with the regulations of the Municipal Government Act and the citizen engagement policies of the municipal planning strategy. If council approves the disposal of the open space lands, the lands will be disposed of in accordance with the council disposal of surplus property policy. So this here's just a little map of the area. This is the property where the preliminary plan of subdivision was submitted. This here's the subject property, the open space parcel that the municipality owns, and that is the subject property. This is Royal Oaks Playground Park, and these are just two other open space parcels in the vicinity. This you can't see it really well up on that map, but this yellow circle here is a 600-meter radius from the Royal Oaks Playground. So the disposal of the subject property aligns with the policies of the Parks, Open Space, and Active Transportation Master Plan and the Playground Development Strategy. The subject property is within a 600-meter catchment area of an existing park and playground developed in 2020, located on Royal Oaks Way and with access from Ridgewood Court. So this is Royal Oaks Way, and this road in here is Ridgewood Court, and there's just a little path here at the end. This is the playground on Royal Oaks Way, just to show you what it looks like there. And opportunities for increased connectivity within the Garden Meadows subdivision are positive for everyone living in the development. Better connectivity will allow residents, especially those families with children, to access Royal Oaks Park and Playground without having to venture out of the subdivision onto Garden Road, the collector road. Instead, residents living on Meadowview will be able to connect through the new proposed development onto Ridgewood Court and connect into the park at the walkway at the end of Ridgewood Court. Alternatively, residents may choose to proceed onto Royal Oaks Way to explore the existing trails accessed off of this road. Increased connectivity is also enshrined in the policy throughout the East Hansel Fisher Community Plan. The Community Plan discourages the use of cul-de-sacs and encourages street connections to increase connectivity and discourage the use of vehicles for short trips. The connectivity also provides for efficient service delivery, for example, solid waste collection and snow clearing. So this is the initial preliminary plan of subdivision that was submitted to staff for review. And as part of that review, we had acknowledged the fact that we actually own this open space parcel, and the developer has nowhere to go. So what we thought would make a good connectivity is to connect through onto Garden View, I believe it is up here, to allow people in this part of the subdivision to access the playground at the end of the Ridge View, which is right down here, onto Royal Oaks, the playground there. So again, this is the revised preliminary plan of subdivision that the applicant did for us upon our request. And it just shows the connectivity across and onto Ridgeview. So both the Municipal Government Act and the Municipal Planning Strategy regulations have policies that stipulate the process for the disposal of open space. Notice is required to be placed in the paper, and a 300-meter mailout is required. In accordance with the Municipal Government Act, any proceeds from the sale of the lands has to be used for parks, playgrounds, and similar purposes. So any profit monies that were funds that were received for that open space disposal would go back into open space purposes. If council deems the subject lands as surplus land, the property will be disposed of in accordance with the council disposal of surplus property policy. Part of the disposal will require that the road connection be required through that subject property, the preliminary plan of the property that's under preliminary subdivision plan, the parcel of land currently under subdivision review, with the intent to negotiate a road right-of-way with the abutting property owners, with a portion going to the developer to make the road possible. And the recommendation is that Planning Advisory Committee recommends the council give consideration to the disposal of the open space parcel. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Debbie. Councillor Godwin-Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, I'm just trying to make sense of this. So we're looking to get rid of this property to enable that development that hasn't happened yet to have better flow to it. Is that it?
Through you, Mr. Chair, what it is through both the active transportation master plan, the Parks Open Space and Active Transportation Master Plan, and the Playground Development Strategy, they both say that neighborhood parks and playgrounds should be spaced 600 meters apart. So because we have a playground here, this parcel of land probably isn't going to be developed for anything because it's within that 600-meter buffer.
Right.
So when this developer submitted the preliminary plan of subdivision, he had no choice but to have two dead ends because the parcel is pretty much landlocked. So when staff reviewed it, we thought that looking at connectivity of trying to get residents from this area of the subdivision, so off of Garden View here, over to the playground without having to go out onto Garden Road here and then back up Royal Oaks, how we could do that efficiently. And so we came up with the idea of that connectivity. It also allows for easier service providing for garbage trucks, snow removal, and those types of ideas when we don't have cul-de-sacs.
Okay, so then the result of this is going to be that there's going to be a throughway there going through to the playground?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yeah. So it would be a road connection here onto Garden View and then into the new development. And then there's already a road connection off of Road Reserve off of Ridgeview. So, and then they would walk up to the Royal Oaks playground at the end.
Okay, good, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you to staff. So the subject property, we're selling to the proposed developer of that number, 45333?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that hasn't been determined how the disposal, it has to go within our policy, so we'd have to review the policy. But we wanted to get council's permission to start the process, and that's what we're asking for today, is to allow us to start your process for consideration of the disposal. So the next staff report will come forward with the details of how that would go forward.
Do you have an assessed value of that property right now?
Through Mr. Chair, no, we haven't gone that far yet.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I see, now looking at the road that borders the top of the subject property, that's Garden View?
Through Mr. Chair, yes.
So I can see that would provide some connectivity from Garden View, because whoever we sell that little green strip to, we can keep a right-of-way, a trail right-of-way across there. So I understand that, but I don't know just how you're going to get from that brown part over to your park.
Through you, Mr. Chair, there's a road right away, so you can see it a little bit better on this one here. So there's a road right away that is existing already on Ridgeview. So that road right away is proposed to be constructed, And so,
So there's already a right-of-way to put a trail across to get you to the road that gets you
yes,
to
and
the
it would be a road that we would be looking to construct,
Okay.
Ridgeview, and then connect
So
onto
who's
Garden
going to
View.
construct that road? Let's just go back here a minute.
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, that would have to be determined as part of the disposal of the surplus property.
But I'm still a little confused, because I'm looking at the initial preliminary plan, and I'm looking at the revised preliminary plan. I don't see any change in that road coming out at the bottom that comes onto Ridgeview.
Through you, Mr. Chair, no, there's no change to the Ridgeview one, it's the change.
Yeah,
to
no, I
right here.
understand that one, but can we go back up to the other picture again? So what you're telling me is that the road coming off of that brown pit there is going to come off through one of those properties through an existing road right-of-way,
That's correct, there's a road reserve, I don't know if you can see
a
my.
road reserve or whatever is already in existence to allow that to happen, even though it's not part of the brown parcel.
That's correct. There's a road
Okay.
reserve right here.
Okay, well, I would assume that the developer would be paying for that
Yes.
himself, but anyway, no, I think I understand it now, although I still doesn't really, if you go up to Garden View there, and then the next road up is, what's the name of that road?
This one here?
Yeah,
Do you remember? Is that Belnan Avenue?
So that's actually Morning Breeze.
Oh, is it?
Will be the top road, and Belman is one of them. Yeah.
so there's no way to get from that road down through to the park yet?
Not at this time. There's one easement that comes from one side, and we're working on the other side. Like, we're trying to tackle these connections as they become available. These options
Okay.
present themselves.
All right, so by disposing of that property, however we dispose of it, we create a right-of-way to get to Garden View for this new development, and that allows some more connectivity, and, okay. I think I've got it now, sounds fine to me, thank you.
Thank you, Warden.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to staff. So this is a staff initiative, not a developer initiative?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that's correct.
Okay, so if this was to happen, would you say that those lots would be more attractive in that new one to be sold? Would it make it more attractive?
I don't,
Through you, Mr. Chair, I don't think there would be much difference, honestly. I mean, some people might actually prefer a lot on a cul-de-sac, less traffic and so on. I think the connectivity is a little bit better, 2 ways in and out of a subdivision, better connectivity to the park. But honestly, I don't, I'm not a property assessor, but I don't think there'd be much difference in value based on the 2 different development scenarios.
Well, Mr. Chair, I respectfully disagree. I think that would enhance the saleability of those lots in that new subdivision, and you know what people would be saying? They'd be saying, look at the municipality helping that developer out, making that more attractive to do that. And, and that I don't want to see. And I don't know, as it is right now, I just can't support this. It just leaves a sour taste in my mouth with regard to that. And another question, has there been any initial discussions in both subdivisions with anyone that who lives there currently?
yeah. Through you, Mr. Chair, that's what we're asking for today is if you allow us to move forward with the consideration, then we would send out that mail out to everybody within 300 meters of the subject lands.
Well, I can't support this the way it is because it's just the visual aspects of it just make it look like we're trying to help this developer out, whoever they may be, by trying to link it to connectivity and stuff. So I can't support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll move the recommendation as presented.
Move to go on camera?
See now if you're putting that up or if you're putting up the report.
I'm just gonna go through the policy and then. Over to you.
Thank you. I would just like to move an amendment to the motion to go in camera to include the legal issue. And we do have another contractual issue later in the agenda that is to be in camera. So I just move that we deal with that in-camera issue at the same time rather than come out of and back in.
Okay, move a second.
Are the public members not?
Okay. You have a motion? Go.
I'm somewhat confused. So we have this in-camera session for a legal issue with Kay Ash. It's under planning, advisory, and committee. So are not our public members part of that committee?
It's not a plan.
This is a legal issue which involves planning staff, but is not necessarily a PAC issue, is what I've been told.
Well, if it's not a PAC issue, really, it should not be under PAC, really. Here we have public members. I guess it's my point. Here we have public members who have made for this. They should be allowed to sit in an in-camera session if it has to do with planning. I'm confused.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the councilor is certainly right. If it's a planning matter, if it's a planning advisory committee, your public members should be there. This was really done, I guess, as a convenience, that it is really a CRS issue, but instead of moving back and forth between committees, it was just decided when the agenda was put together to tag this on to the end of PAC, even though it's only loosely related to planning, but it, you know, it's, as you said, it's planning staff, but it's not really a planning issue.
Is that okay?
Well, in the future, can we put this in the right, onto the right committee? Because to me, that was very confusing in this regard, and I don't think that's fair to public members who have chosen to be on this committee, or we have chosen to be on this committee.
And through you, Mr. Chair, I would also add that we did inform the public members that there would be this item at the end of the agenda that they could be excused from, so they knew that.
Okay.
Question on the amendment, not just the amendment. Question on the amended motion.
Question be called on the amended motion. And the motion passes unanimously.
Okay, I'd like to report that we met in camera for a legal issue and nothing come out of it, and a contractual issue, and a motion will come when we reconvene to I and O. Okay, I would like a motion to adjourn from PAC.
So moved.
Move in second, all in favor? Motion passed. Okay. Now we have to call the I&O committee to order. The first item is the approval of the minute of September 2022.
So moved. Seconded.
Move in second, all in favor? Motion passed. Okay, I would like to report that we met in camera for a contractual issue and a couple motions coming. Anybody ready to move the recommended motion? Councilor Garden Cole.
I move that the Infrastructure and Operations Committee recommend to Council to extend the road's winter maintenance contract with Basin Contracting for a 6th year at rates negotiated with the vendor by the CAO, and that Council approve an additional $50,000 for the road budget to be monitored under existing budget monitoring policies to be funded by the Transportation Snow Clearing Roads Reserve.
Any seconder?
Second.
Move in second, go for the vote. No, any discussion, question being called. And the motion passed unanimously.
Also move that the Infrastructure and Operations Committee recommend to Council to extend the sidewalks winter maintenance contract with Elmsdale Landscaping for a 6th year at rates negotiated with the vendor by the CAO, and that Council approve an additional $70,000 for the sidewalk budget to be monitored under existing budget monitoring policies to be funded by the Urban Service Rates Snow Removal Sidewalks Reserve.
Second.
Move in second, any discussion?
Question.
Question being called. And the motion passed unanimously. Our next item is the Enfield Water Treatment Plant Construction Budget. Derek.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. The consultant for the Enfield Water Treatment Plant expansion has been working away in the background, and we finally have a detailed design ready to go to tender. Just because of the way the market is going, and we used to do this before the pandemic, we just asked the consultant to confirm the construction costs pre-tender. They submitted their estimated costs, and staff spoke to them about what they were estimating and their level of confidence. And based on some recent tenders that we've received, and information that we've received from various suppliers, our recommendation is to increase those costs by 30%. That's across the board. Really what we've been seeing since January is a 30% increase in most construction costs. So we are recommending to council that they approve a motion requesting additional budget. There are a couple of alternatives which I believe we used for the Shubenacadie wastewater treatment plant. So we could go out for additional estimates with a quantity surveyor. There is a cost associated with that, and we said $10,000, which I think was true probably a few months ago. It may be more than that now. The other alternative would be just to go with a current budget, but we know that we would need more money, so it would put us in a bit of a bind. It would need a very quick turnaround from council to approve any increase in budget. So our recommendation would be, do I read out the recommended motion?
No, just
No.
says on screen.
Okay, so yeah, our recommendation would be to go with the motion as presented.
Councilor Perry.
Thank you. Through you to staff. As per many projects, I'm glad to see that the estimate has increased boldly, because in the past we have increased our estimate and still come 20% below what the actual cost is. 30% to me seems to be something that's viable. I will move the recommended motion.
Thank you, Derek. Okay, so I'm going to do a quick demo of a new tool that launched to the public yesterday. It's an online reporting tool. So up on the screen is the public website for East Hants. So the current tool is really focused on roads, sidewalks, and streetlight reporting, and if there is an issue to existing services. So we've added some buttons on our roads page. So if you go, once again, so our main page, and if you go, there's a nice roads tab on the side. And on our roads main page, we have two ways to get to the reporting tool. There's, if you read, you can go report a road issue, or you can go over here or report an issue. And it just guides you through topics in a way that will direct the customer to the right location for the information. So if it is of provincial ownership, we'll actually present the information of how to contact the province. If it's municipal, it will pull in all the information we need to create an action report and do a proper investigation. So I'll give an example: snow clearing, and then under the categories, what is the issue? Well, it's not cleared. Well, where could it be? And so no different than other online tools, it will auto-populate your address, as you can see. So 15 Commerce Court, that's this building right here. Enter the description, demo. I can attach a photo. So this is a neat feature. If you click this on your mobile, it'll automatically go to your phone, click, it automatically downloads. So you can send pictures. So if it's a pothole, or you can actually show the visual, extremely helpful for our reporting. So it helps us identify. Pictures are worth 1,000 words, right? That's the saying. So for a reason, may we contact you? So some folks like to report anonymously. That's fine. We're fine. We just want the information. If you want us to be able to contact you to provide more information, or if we have clarification, you can. So your name, your email, your phone number. We don't need to know where you live. You're reporting as wherever the issue is. We just want to be able to ask questions if you're okay with that. That's me, and I submit. And if you have more than one issue, you can start at the next issue. So one topic at a time, and you can just cycle through. It's an effort to provide easier access for our residents on how to get a hold of staff, get those issues reported, automated in a way that it creates a ticket so we don't lose the information. There isn't a, hey, I scribbled a note and I've lost it somewhere. It's in our system, it's cataloged, and then we can triage. And if 10 people report the same issue, perfect, because all of a sudden we have a sort function and we're not chasing the same thing 10 times. We know it's all in a grouping in our reports. So it streamlines our actions. So residents and the public using this tool will help us help them. It's going to make us be able to respond quicker. And it's a big effort. This was a tool that was built internally. Our information services team was the catalyst to build the back end. We had support from planning on building the the civic addressing linkages, and the lists change. And so we can change the lists. We do a winter road exchange with the province. So your lists for that are dynamic, and we can change it on the back end, and the public never sees the change. You just have to report your issue, and we've got it figured out. So a big internal effort. It took several months to get here. It's a quick demo, but it was a lot of thought put into it. So it's launched, it's live. The promo banner's in the back. It's on our social media, and we wanted the executive to be aware of the new tool, and that's it.
Thank you, Jesse. That's awesome.
Perfect.
Okay, I have Councillor Perry.
First thing, great tool. I think it's really going to be very helpful for a lot of residences. You mentioned something that brought to my attention that I was supposed to bring up. We were talking about snow clearing. Road exchange with the province. Have you guys had your sit-down meetings with the province yet? Talk about road exchange. There was a few roads in my area last year that were missed and caused months worth of pain, because once it was missed and the snow and the ice built up, it took literally 2 to 3 months before that ice was broken down enough to actually go and be cleared.
Okay, through you, Mr. Chair. So the road exchange process started approximately 4 weeks ago. We've been exchanging lists back and forth with the province. It's not finalized as of yet, but it's semantics over 2 roads on the list. So we've got in the system now, we have what we have proposed, and if it changes by a road, we'll switch on the fly. But ultimately, we will clear all roads as needed and work through it through telephone until we have a formalized list, and then it'll go public again.
Okay, yeah, I just know there's already a lot of turnover of operators yet again this year, and I just would hate to see them to just pull a provincial road, they see the blue sign, they turn around and go away.
No, through you, Mr. Chair, brilliant comment. We've had several discussions talking about roads that were missed last fiscal, unnamed roads, because there's a couple, and we went into that level of detail in that exchange this year. So,
okay,
good start.
Yeah, because I've already heard from some residents, do my kid have to walk through half a kilometer of ice to get the school bus because the bus can't come to the door anymore? So, no, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. See no one else. I want to thank you thank all staff for that great tool. And just a small question. So that's in your department, like that the report goes straight to your department, or who's gonna take it over and send it to the right people?
So, through Mr. Chair, another great question. So it comes directly, there are people assigned. So instead of it being to a person, it's a task or assigned. And so during a storm event, for instance, there will be a staff member assigned. So you don't have to worry about it going to a specific person. There will be someone on staff that is assigned to check that generic program during that day. So it's this person this week, this person that week. It's assigned in the back end. There's coverage. And it will be continuous. So,
thank you. Okay, see no one else. There's no recommendation, nothing. So we move to the next one. Okay, the next item is organics processing contract. Andrea.
Report up. Do you want to put the report down?
I got it.
Oh, you already got it? Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. So I'm here to provide an update on our recent RFP process for organics processing. So our current contract expires March 31st. We went out in the month of September, and the RFP closed October 4th. We did have an extension due to a storm that we won't name. So there were some power outage considerations. So we did extend the RFP closure. So at the end of the day, we had one proposal come through. The financial impact statement is shown there. So our current contract, it's about $80 a ton, plus our taxes for processing our organics today. The new contract term, we see year one would be $85 a ton, year two would be $90, and year three would be $95 per ton plus taxes. So again, based on our current trends of our tonnage, we're looking at approximately $10,000 a year, not accounting for potential growth over the next number of years. So that's the financial impact for this particular contract. The second part of the impact for this contract award is that we have another RFP that needs to be issued in the beginning of November, and that is for our transportation of both waste, recycling, and organics. The contractor that put a bid in for organics is GFL, Green for Life, and the location is in Guysborough. So our current contract is funded compost in Brookfield. So we are expecting that the next contract for transportation will be quite a bit higher given the turnaround time distance for organics come April 1st for the next 3 years. So with that, we have two recommended motions. Do you want me to read those out?
Yeah, for this one, I list both of them.
Okay, so we have two recommended motions. So the first is that the Infrastructure Operations Committee recommend to Council to approve the award of the organics material processing contract to GFL for the 3-year term starting April 1st, 2023. The second motion that we have put forward is that Council, the committee recommend to Council to request a report be brought back outlining organic processing options that could be considered for after this current contract term, so for April 2026.
Thank you, Andrea. Councillor Head.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will move the first recommended motion as presented.
Move in second. Any discussion? Deputy Warden.
Just a quick question to the staff. Is there a fuel rider in the contract? Do you put one in?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So for the organics processing, there's not. It would be for the transportation contract. So
Okay,
this is just for the processing part.
Okay. See no one else? A question being called. And the motion passed unanimously. Anybody gonna move the second motion? Councillor Head.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that the Infrastructure and Operations Committee recommend that Council request a report be brought back outlining organic process options that could be considered after this current contract term of April 2026.
Second.
Moving in second. Any discussion? I have a small question if nobody have any. Jesse, how you deal with the fuel? Like, is there a fuel surcharge or a fuel, like, I know with my business there, fuel surcharge of like $10 when the diesel is $1.60. Then if it goes to $2, the surcharge go up. When it go down, it doesn't go down. Then it go up again, then they push it up again. So I don't know how it works with the municipal. Like, just a question.
Okay, through Madam Warden, on the fuel piece, where that comes into play will be the transportation contract. We have to establish the processing piece first, which is the static rate per organics, or static rate for processing. What we'll now go to, which is quite reasonable pricing. That is the market. What it gets into is then we have to go to the next contract to get our transportation, and there'll be a variable cost. What our approach has been as a municipality is we benchmark the province. The province has a set approach that they work into their contracts. We mimic the same approach so that there's a fair fluctuation costs. So the contractor doesn't, we pay for, they essentially bid on what the cost is on labor, and then there's a fair fluctuation rate based on market, so that neither party is penalized or benefits greatly. So it's a fair matrix in there. We do that in a lot of different contracts. So not just our core transportation contract, but that comes into snow clearing. It comes into other contracts like that involve fuel. So it is we're anticipating that one to be a big difference, a big change, and it highlights the challenges in today's market with the uncertainty on fuel, and we'll get into those pricings on the next contract, which we anticipate we will go to market on that right away, and then we'll see where we're at, and then that'll be the discussion of where do we go from there on cost. But from a processing stance, this is right in line.
Thank you. Okay. Did we call for a question? Yeah, question being called, we'll go for the vote. And the motion passed unanimously.
Thanks, Andrew.
If nothing else left, I'll be looking for a motion to adjourn. Moved in second, all in favor? Aye. Motion passed. If I stay here, I should go to my room.
And if staff will let me know when we're good to move into our policy meeting, we'll. Okay, folks, we'll call this policy regular meeting of council to order. We have one item of business. I will turn it over to Councillor Perry for the Corporate and Services Committee report.
Thank you, Madam Warden. The committee held its regular meeting on October 18th, 2022 in council chambers. The following motions are coming forward as a result of that meeting. Asset Retirement Obligation PSAB 3280 policy. The committee considered information and a draft policy for public sector accounting standard asset retirement accounting obligation PSAB 3280. The new standard stipulates the accounting treatment for asset retirement obligations so that the user of the financial statements can discern information about these assets and their end-of-life obligations. The Corporate Residential Services Committee recommends that Council give notice of intent to approve Asset Retirement Obligation Council Policy as attached to the Executive Committee agenda dated 18th October 2022. As Chair of the Committee, I so move.
Seconded by the Deputy Warden. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Question.
The question's been called. We have one person left to vote, folks. And the motion has passed unanimously.
Number 2, recognition policy and repeal of related policies. The committee considered a new policy to compile existing recognition types of policies into one policy, including some minor housekeeping edits and the addition of business recognition opportunities. Committee also added the opportunity for annual recognitions for birthdays after the age of 75 and confirmed one-off special requests are permitted under policy. The Corporate and Residential Services Committee recommends that council give notice of intent to approve the proposed recognition policy with the additions of potential annual recognition for birthdays after the age of 75 and to repeal the following policies. Policy to recognize significant individuals with key to the municipality. Municipal PIN policy. Recognition for support of fire and emergency services policy. Policy to recognize significant occasions in the lives of East Hants residents and recognition of achievement. As chair of the committee, I so move.
Seconded by Councilor Musa. Is there any discussion on the motion? Question's been called. And the motion is passed unanimously.
As chair of committee, I move the adoption of this report.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary, motion is carried. And that concludes our business for this meeting of council regarding policy. I'd be looking for a motion to adjourn. Moved by Councilor Rhino, seconded by the Deputy Warden. All those in favor? Contrary, motion is carried. We are adjourned, folks. Thank you very much.